back before we start. So on my end, there is no lag, and then we can start actually. Okay, I will announce that we started. And by the way, sorry that I'm looking to the right side. Just my main monitor is here. So
No worries.
um, okay.
Yeah, oh, presenting oneself online with camera angles and such is more trickier than people know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, for me it's still weird that to experience that technology is such, wide and good that we can like talk like this, not needed to meet. Of course, I'm more into like, meeting somebody IRL, but yeah. Okay, let
Wow,
me
I didn't know life had an acronym now.
yeah.
That's that.
I wish, by the way, there was a teleport invented. It would be easier to make these interviews and more personal, right? So
That gets into a philosophical issue. Though.
yeah. Okay. Let
You
me.
never get a step in one of those things. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I always hoped to have these technologies. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe one day. Maybe one day. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let us know if there is no lag on my end on the stream so we can start. Let me know. Let me know. My voice is low. Yeah, we discussed that in other episodes as well. That I. It's only on the stream, right? You can hear me well, right?
Yes, I can very well.
Okay. It's only the stream is making me like sound more quiet, but I'm not sure why. I will try to
Oh,
talk a bit louder
are you
though.
not here? Are you not hearing me so well?
No,
Because
no,
I
I,
am
I
standing.
hear you. No. I hear you. People cannot hear me well in the stream because Twitch is like making my voice more quiet. I'm not sure why, but I,
Right.
yeah. But I will try to talk louder, and that will help. Okay. Jó hölgyek, urak, minden. Is everything good on my side for the quality part? Like there is no lag. Please let me know. So, oh, they let. Okay. Let me know if you're down to start. Feel
I'm
free.
ready.
Okay, me too. Okay, welcome everyone in my very newest episode of Dev Live Show. I'm here today joined by Peter. I'm very thankful and very honored that you joined us today. And like I'm always saying, let's start with a little bit of introduction. So please introduce yourself for us.
Well, thanks. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
Well, let's see. I've been writing music for games for roughly 34 years.
Okay.
I started uh, in around 1990 91 um, when I moved out to California from the East Coast, and my friend Michael Land, who was working, had actually I had a I'll get into this more later, but he was working at LucasArts, and uh, I I got a job working with him at LucasArts, developing some audio technology and also writing some music. And I did that for about a decade before I went on my own in 2000. And I've scored a few games people might have heard of. Monkey Island, Grim Fandango. That'd be Monkey Island 2, 3, and 4. Grim Fandango. Excuse me, Sly Cooper 2, 3, and 4. Uh, let's see, some other things: Disney Connect Adventures, Psychonauts, Brutal Legend, and Hearthstone. Those are some that just kind of come to mind. I've scored a few games in my career, and I would say I'm specialize in sort of whimsical music that can be for a small ensemble or it can be for a large orchestra. And I like to work in a lot of styles. So maybe
Nice.
that. Oh, forgot to mention Plants vs Zombies.
Yeah, and also Valiant Hearts, right? If I'm remember
Mm,
correctly.
Which again?
Valiant Hearts, a Ubisoft game.
No, yeah, I don't think.
No.
But,
Okay,
yeah,
Wikipedia
all
lies.
right.
Wikipedia lies then.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay, I was
no worries.
misinformed then. I was misinformed then by the internet. It's okay. Power of the
Oh,
internet, right?
what? I can't believe that. I mean, the internet never lies. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure what happened then. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for that. Okay, so uh, it's always like interesting for me. What is the origin behind people's, loving video games, and also like for yourself. Let's add loving music. So let's start with video games. How or what was the very first contact for you with video games?
Probably that would probably be a game called Space Wars,
Okay.
which which was a that was a excuse me, a
It's okay.
arcade game that you could play with a put your quarter in, and it was very very simple graphics. It was the same graphic. It had a sort of video screen, and you were a little rocket ship, and you could shoot another rocket ship, and that was pretty quickly followed by a game called Asteroids, which in which you were basically had to fight off all these asteroids that would otherwise blow you up. And that was something that I played in college as, geez, I guess as a freshman, actually. It was about the time Space Wars came out. After that was Pac-Man. So again, arcade games and games like Centipede and stuff like that. It was just, I didn't have a whole lot of quarters to spend, but from time to time when I wanted to take a study break, I would go to a local cafe or and play one of those games that I just mentioned. And I think my first real sort of interest in games happened with a game called Zork, which was a story-based game,
Okay.
all text. Have you ever heard of Zork?
I think I did, but I haven't played
Yeah,
it. I'm sure that I haven't
Zork.
played it. I'm always into,
Zork.
searching about very old school games that I could not play because I did not live in that era. But
Yeah, no, and well, Zork was it was see when at the time I'm talking about, which is basically uh, well from late '70s, early '80s. Um, the games were games, video game. Well, video games were all in arcades, and they were
yeah,
played by teenagers largely. And a game like Zork was just a niche game that was played by computer geeks, both like engineering students. And it ran originally on something called a Unix VAX. Well, it ran Unix. It was a PDP standalone mainframe, little mainframe. They called them mini computers in those days because they weren't as big as the whole room. And those and they were made by a company called Digital Equipment Corporation, and pretty much most engineering firms, I would say, had some kind of a mini computer, and the engineers would, when they were taking time off, would play games like Zork and Rogue. And Zork was a story game, and Rogue was a little game you played with a it was curse. It was text based. It was a little ampersand that would go across the screen, but it was actually what it really was the first. Um, it was the first sort of not exactly shooter, but like action battle type game.
I see.
Rogue had elements of even, I would say, Castle Wolfenstein or Doom in it, even though it was just a little text character moving across the screen. But and then Zork was a story based game, so the kind of graphic adventures and platformers really would have come from that source. So really really early stuff, right? And that would be around, I guess when I first started playing Zork was like 1984 or something like that. It'd probably been out for a few years, not that many years, maybe 5 years or something like that. And so that's how I got interested in games very early on. And I had a at being well in college, I had switched from being a physics major to being a music major.
But why?
And
Okay, that's interesting. Why?
well, because that sort of goes back to me loving music all my life, and really singing before I could talk. And when I was a little kid, by the way, I lived in Switzerland, in Basel, and my earliest memories of Basel are musical. Um, and my dad had a Sony tape recorder that, and he had two types of tapes. He had Mozart, which I just loved, and we also would hear music like that in church in Basel. My father was studying theology at the time, and and also a American band called Sons of the Pioneers, which is cowboy music. So, and I've always had those two sides. I always had sort of a folk side and a more classical side.
I see.
Folk, I would include rock and roll, and I think rock and roll is a kind of folk. But, uh, and so that, and I was also curious about the world. So as I was growing up, I was always interested in playing music. I took classical violin lessons. I taught myself how to play guitar and banjo. And again, the two sides. And when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a physicist. I went to Harvard as first as a math major and then a physics major. But I just found that when and there are a couple of things that changed. Well, one of them was, and I didn't really realize how big of a deal this was at the time, but when I was a sophomore and I was working hard on a problem set, at that time Yo-Yo Ma was the house tutor, house music tutor in the sort of mini college dorm that I was in, and and Yo-Yo Ma, it was, no one knew who he was. It was just everybody's saying, well, this guy's going to be the world's greatest cellist, right? And really, literally a couple years after that, he just exploded. But right there, but at that time, he was just a musician that everybody respected, and he played a free concert right under my feet, like in my dorm room. And I was working so hard that I didn't go down two sets of stairs to sit there. I could have been as far away from Yo-Yo Ma as I am from this screen right now, and seen him play. And I missed that opportunity. What other opportunities did I miss? I missed seeing the Clash in Harvard Square, and I think I started to get this idea that my head was just in the wrong place.
I see.
And so I took time off.
Would you go back in time, by the way, if you had the chance to make those opportunities happen?
I would see. I think in terms of musical, because I actually saw a lot of great musicians when I was in college.
I see.
A guy named Bruce Coburn, who's a Canadian artist, and Taj Mahal, who's just fantastic, and I saw Dizzy Gillespie, and I saw some really fine players, but or performers. But if I had to go back in time, I definitely would have seen the Clash, the Ramones, and Yo-Yo Ma. I would not have.
I mean,
I
you
would
can
not
still
have.
contact them, right? It's like it's like not
Yeah.
impossible to contact them, and
Well,
let them
well,
know this story of yours, even throughout
there aren't
this interview of ours.
there there aren't too many Ramones left,
Oh, I see. I see.
and I don't know about the Clash. They haven't played for a while. I don't know. I couldn't say actually, but haven't seen them around here anyway.
I see. I see.
Anyway, point is that I just it dawned on me that I was just spending my time doing something that I mean, there I was sitting in my room working on a physics problem set. My guitar was sitting next to me, and I hadn't touched it for a week, and it was something that was a new experience for me. I just always took it for granted that I could play music, and then I realized, well, if you're going to do something else in music, maybe you're not going to be able to do that as much as you'd like. So, but it was a long path to actually being a musician. And I won't bore you with the details, but
I'm
it did
interested, by
it.
the way, in the details, and I also have a question from that what you have mentioned for us. Do you believe that so music is based on math very heavily?
Well, sure. I mean, that's pretty that's a common thing,
Yeah,
and I think it's pretty just clearly true. I mean, Thelonious Monk, they have special sort of high schools in in New York that you have to work hard to get into.
I see.
Uh, and there's music and art is a famous one, and Thelonious Monk went to one of those special high schools, but it wasn't music and art. It was the math and science one. I can't remember the name of it, but and if you listen to his music, you can hear there's a very even though it's very sort of odd in many ways and sort of off center, it's very mathematical as well. So he's almost like in some ways the Bach of jazz or something. But uh, anyway, yeah, absolutely. There's a connection between and especially I would say between um, well, no, it really goes anyway. It's uh, performance. Um, I'd say improvised performance, especially, and also composition, because you're in real time or not real time. You're creating a structure
True, true.
that you're working on a structure that is pleasing to you, right? And I think ma- mathematics comes from a similar kind of yearning for order. Maybe is too harsh of a word, but just structure and it's just in the case of music, it's an aesthetic structure rather than sort of a scientific one.
I see. Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned that you don't want to go into details, but if you would, or if you would like to, then do you feel like so how do you feel like it was hard to switch, or why was it hard to switch since you always love music?
Well, the
Of
it
course, if you
wasn't
don't mind me
hard.
asking, but let me know.
It wasn't hard to switch in terms of. It was very easy to switch what I was doing.
Okay,
Right, I like for one thing, the classes started at 10 instead of 8:30, and that was really great. Musician,
I see.
I don't know. The one big thing that encouraged me to switch to
To
music was
sleep more.
I have a musician's sleep schedule, I think. So it was easy to like spend all one's time thinking about music. The hard thing, of course, is actually getting paid for it once you graduate. And
Was it
and
scary, by the way, to switch and
oh,
knowing that it will be like hard to?
it was it might have been a little bit scary to switch. I actually considered going to New England Conservatory
I
instead
see.
of finishing up at Harvard. And but I the electronic music program at Harvard was really cool and one of a kind. Really, it was there were teachers named Yvonne Cherepnin, uh, and uh, and I think also my very early sort of love of classical music helped decide that
I see.
too. So I had a few teachers in college that were important to me. Another guy named Kurt Cacioppo, who's he's just now retired, but classical composer.
I see.
And Ivan was he was a very eclectic composer. He drew from all kinds of sources, and it was I would bring a piece to him, and he would say, "Oh, have you heard of Al Green? He's a wonderful artist." And then he'd take me to the river, which is why not the thing I was expecting to have him play me. Um, and so yeah, was it hard? No, it was really natural to switch what I was doing during the day. But as I said, figuring out how to make any money at it, I was completely clueless. We didn't have any musicians in my family, and I didn't know what kind of music I wanted to do. Really, I kind of wanted to be a rock star of some sort, but I wasn't really in. I did some work that was kind of in that '80s pop realm, but it wasn't. I was more from a folk background, so it wasn't really uh, necessarily solid for me. And so I had it went through a period of time where uh, I was like working as a gardener doing different things, and then I got a job at Lexicon, um, writing code for pro- sound processors that musicians play their instruments through. So
I see.
if you are a musician, you probably know Lexicon.
I see.
They were especially big in the '80s, and they did all the great sort of reverbs and delay units. They invented digital delay and close to invented reverb. I can get into those details later and who did what, but point is that everybody was using their gear, and it was really fun to have that as a day job while I was like playing at bands in the evening, and it also satisfied that sort of science side of my mind, right? And but the big opportunity for me was when I had a friend, Michael, who I was like roommates with for a while, and uh, I helped him get a job at Lexicon, and then he moved out west to San Francisco Bay Area, and we kind of had a plan to start a band, and I was gonna move out and join him. While he was out in San Francisco, he got a job at LucasArts. And by the time I got out here, he was the band thing was kind of on the back burner, but he was told me, you got to come in and see what I'm doing here because it's pretty interesting. And he showed me Monkey Island 1 and said they needed to write a new sound system for those games. And I was like, wow, you mean I could actually do music tech and then maybe write music for the tech that we create? And he was yes. He was said, yeah, that's exactly what we could do. And that was I thought that was pretty awesome.
It was a band,
So
right? But it just another form.
yeah, it was a different kind of band. And
Yeah.
Clinton Pickens, who was also who was a sort of schoolmate of Michael's, who uh, came out then third. He was another member of the band that we were going to put together. Somehow he never did do that. Clinton and Mike playing a band now, but anyway, and so he was the third composer at LucasArts, and we also hired a guy named Michael McMahon, who's a audio software whiz, and we did the technical system. We did the iMuse system, they called it, together,
I see.
and so that's kind of how I got into it. Very basically, year by year, I did more music and less tech until about 2000, when I was really just doing all music, and then stepped out of LucasArts. Michael and I actually had a tech venture, which I helped to support by writing music, which is kind of weird. And
Why it is weird? Why it is weird? Why are you saying that?
to write music and to support your tech startup, because generally speaking, it works the other way
True,
around.
true, true, true. It's true. It's true. Yeah, makes sense.
At least in the early stages, music doesn't pay very well. But anyway, we uh, that I got more into uh, just being a composer during that time.
Have you missed science during those times, or even now?
Well, I've got kids, so I enjoy talking about science with my daughter, who's very into science.
I see.
Uh,
Do you think that she will go on the same path as you, that she is more to science but will switch to music?
I don't know what's going to happen. She's a really good violinist too, so uh, I actually she's kind of better than me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's a really really wonderful classical player, and uh, but I think that yeah, who knows? It's their you know it's their lives,
True, true, true.
and and they'll do what they do. But I do like being able to talk about science with them,
I see.
uh, and I'm interested in that in that way. But I'm at the end of the day, I'm a musician. That's just what I want to do.
I see. And so, how do you feel about throughout the journey when you were like finding yourself as a musician and finding a path, the right path to be able to, earn money from that? Were your family members and close friends supportive about your decision that you switch from science to be, around music and then make that your everyday job as well?
Well, yeah, I'd say the big answer to that question is yes. I had supportive parents.
I see.
I won't lie. Dad was he was a little worried when I talked about dropping out of Harvard. I don't think I blame him. And he, I don't think he was excited about the prospect of me going to conservatory. And but but beyond that, I got a lot of support and understood. Kind of when I look back on it now that I'm a parent, and when I look back on it, I think, wow, gee, they were pretty patient with me. To be honest with you, because it took me a long time to find my way.
I see. Do you think that it was important for you, and it is important to have a supportive surrounding, like family members and friends, in order to
Yeah,
achieve your
it,
goals?
it, I think it's very I think it's very important because it's just hard to do. Any kind of artistic expression involves a certain amount of involves risk and vulnerability, making yourself vulnerable. And so I think there are cases in which people have a very unsupportive environment. I guess I don't know too much about this, but I've heard that Bruce Springsteen, for example, had a difficult relationship with his dad, and he seems to have done pretty well as a musician. Um, but I think those cases where someone is rebels against their background
True,
or
true,
whatever,
true, true, true.
those
Yeah,
those those are those are important cases. But I think more often it helps to have a nurturing uh, and understanding background. You do need to. One thing that is, I think, very um, it's very important as musicians is that you need to be comfortable with taking pretty big risks, and and that and it does. I think taking risk is something that if you're it's easier to do when you've had some support, when you've had some understanding. Um, and I think in my case, the fact that my dad was a minister. Ministers don't make a lot of money, and they have a calling. And so I think on some level he was understanding of the fact that I had a calling, and might have been different from his calling, but he understood that it was a calling, and understood that I'd loved music all my life, and mom, I would say the same thing.
it's very nice of
So
them, by the way.
very, that's I think that's really important. That it's funny now because we live in this age of like helicopter parents where they're just like helping their kids do everything, and my God, we can't even let the kid fall down and skin his knee because what's going to happen, and ridiculous. So I don't think I don't believe in making things too easy for for um, children. If we're talking about how raising kids, or I don't believe I don't believe in making things too easy. But support is absolutely essential. People have to understand that people who are growing up need to understand that they're safe,
True,
and
true.
that they be supported in whatever way they choose.
Yeah, and also I believe that our lives part as childhood part is the most important one. Like it defines our future life, in my opinion. It's very
Yeah.
it's very easy, to go like rogue and in a very bad way in future if we had like a very bad childhood. Like I always say this, in my opinion, is the ones who will be able to give love, the ones who got love in their childhood from their family throughout every art form, like even music, even video games, or even making a
Hmm.
movie or writing a book, I believe, or just being polite to everyone. I believe in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, being polite is
It's rare nowadays. I guess
yeah, it's
we can
very
say.
under.
Yeah, underrated. Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that you were like finding yourself and your own path. Were there times when you were like questioning yourself or your path, that you are on the right, journey of your life during that
Oh,
time?
and especially when I was young, because nobody pays you anything when you're
I see.
young. So you I think I was really lucky to find that sort of bridge where I could get paid for technical work, which is sort of an obvious normal thing for people to get paid for, and um, and but also be able to be paid at the same time for doing music, and then just kind of changing the balance of those two things.
I see.
Um, so, and I think as being a musician in doing music for interactive entertainment, it's really important still. It's less important than it used to be, but it's still really important to understand how the actual tech works, because and how the actual development process works, because you're on a team, and if you really understand the ins and outs of how the soundtrack is implemented, you have information that helps you be a better composer. And it's sort of like Bach um, knew everything about the instruments he worked on. He was, besides being a composer, he was essentially an organ tech. He invented a method of tuning. He invented just intonation. And then when, well, actually, I'm not a Bach scholar, so that might not be right. But he was on top of, let's put it this way, he was on top of all the changes in tuning that happened in his lifetime, including, of course, well-tempered tuning, which was the yeah, not just intonation. Sorry, that was the wrong term. Well-tempered is what I was talking about, and wrote the well-tempered clavier so that you could actually play in all 12 keys. For all you music, I think the music geeks out there understand what I'm saying, but the point is that Bach knew everything there was to know about, I mean, everything about uh, uh, the technical advances and the technology to make music of his time, and so did Beethoven, for that matter. The metronome got invented,
Yeah, true,
and
true,
he went back over all of his scores and put in metronome markings, because
true.
it's like, well, now at last, when it says etwas langsam in the score, I can actually give it a nice slow tempo, that I meant to for it to be. Um, so uh, I do think that in this day and age, being on top of music means understanding computer music technology, because that's sort of the most recent music technology there
True,
is.
true. Yeah. And it's interesting that this topic is always brought up by other developers of games as well, because I totally can agree with you and relate to that, because I feel like every genre of music, or every genre of making any form of art could become mainstream, and became mainstream, since there are a lot of people who are not understanding the technology, and then do not have the wider knowledge behind what they are making. They are just making it because they do have talent for it, and sometimes it's not enough. Like my mother always said that it's one side that you have something that you are talented in, but you have to like work 10 times harder, and learn to grow and understand your talent and your knowledge, and to grow that knowledge as well. And I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I feel like we are living in a to add to your point. I feel like we are living in a day uh, of where like people can express themselves in such way, even if they do not have the technical knowledge in music, especially that
Mhm.
they can get very quick and very famous without having that knowledge, and without giving a very deep message, and it's weird. It's for me, as listening to a lot of genres of music, it's weird to see that, because like I believe that every creator of music has a message to give. Don't get me wrong. So even
Yeah.
those who might, not be intentional with it, but I feel like it's still like weird that people can, pop to a very high level of fame without, having the knowledge and the real, let's say, talent. And it's weird, because I feel like there are so many indie musicians who are not appreciated that much that they should be. But I think that was always the case about people who make art. That they weren't
It,
appreciated throughout their time, which is bad in my opinion.
well, you're right that that's always been the case. Have you ever
Yeah.
heard of Carl Ditters von Dittersdorf?
No, 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 I haven't.
Well, he was actually almost as famous as Beethoven in his day.
Oh, okay.
And let's just say that when you play through his music now, you're kind of like, wait, this doesn't seem very deep. Um, and but he was tremendously famous, Carl Ditters von Dittersdorf. Uh, and maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit when I say he's almost as famous as Beethoven, but he was quite famous, and it's very hard to judge uh, the the ultimate sort of resonance of something when it's
True,
happening, and
true, true, true,
so
true.
so is Taylor Swift an important artist? Well, obviously yes, and by some measures, and by some other measures, we don't know yet.
By the way, if you brought up Taylor Swift, what is your opinion about if somebody has a ghostwriter of his job as a musician? Because she
Well,
has songs
no, that
that is not her. It's not her song. So what's your opinion about that?
yeah, I don't know that much about the particulars of that. You know, she does write most of her material,
Yeah,
doesn't
she
she?
does, but there are like two songs that she mentioned that it wasn't hers. Like "Party in the USA," if I'm correct, it's not hers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very old tradition. I don't have a big problem with that personally. I mean, uh, uh, it's Hans Zimmer gets a lot of help from his people, and
True, true,
and
true.
uh, 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 I think as long as people are pretty clear about it, it's there's still sort of usually in those cases there's still kind of a guiding artistic vision there.
True, true,
You
true.
know, so you're looking for example, there's writing on Mozart's Requiem on the original score of Mozart's Requiem that people still haven't identified,
True.
and it's one of his students probably. And and Leonardo da Vinci got quite a bit of help on the Last Supper.
True.
Um,
True, true.
so it's uh, not that Taylor Swift is the Last Supper, um, but I think that I think that there's, I think she clearly has a vision, and
True,
that
I agree.
vision
I agree. Yeah.
incredibly resonant right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because I totally agree with you, and I always say that, for example, here in Hungary there are some songwriters who might not wrote all of their songs, but they have
Uh-huh.
such a way better voice than those who write or wrote their songs for them. And it's so I always say that it's I couldn't listen to that song if the songwriter was to sing it, but not the actual musician. So that's why I totally agree with you that in some
Yeah.
cases the songwriter might not be that good, for example, to sing that song, but
Sure.
the person who is written to the song, they are more talented in singing that, and
Are,
could give out the message of the song better in a better way.
are you familiar with the Monkees?
I think yes. I think
Rock and
yes.
roll band, the Monkees.
Yeah, I think yes.
Uh, they were huge. They when I was a little kid. A bunch of their songs were written by Neil Diamond, and you can sort of, and some one of them is called "I'm a Believer," and you can kind of imagine. Um, that's actually one you can kind of imagine him singing, but the Monkees version just seems like the right version of the tune,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's a rock and roll song. Anyway, um, yeah, I think I just I don't have a problem with ghostwriters or second writers or whatever, as long as they're being treated
True,
fairly.
true, true, true. Yeah. Yeah, it's just like I mentioned before our interview that we are living in such a cancel culture era that if people do not see the actual case behind it or do not see behind the curtain, they are willing to judge that okay, it's a ghostwriter who wrote the song for the actual musician. But it's not a bad thing. Like it's like similar to have a mentor, like you mentioned, or
Yeah,
to
and then
someone who works with you exactly like in a band. So
yeah, there's a lot of people running around in various facets of life who want to say aha.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
and,
Wants
and get a
wants a piece of the pie just to be able to judge. Yeah, yeah.
and,
Okay, so and throughout the journey of your life when you actually started working on games and composing musics for game soundtracks, and you actually started to earn money from that. Which one so far was your favorite game that you worked on? Because you mentioned that you
oh,
worked a lot, but if you would pick, for example, three or four, which ones that be, and why, of course?
I mean, I've basically what your favorite score, or my favorite score is always the one I'm working on now, right?
Okay,
Um, and it should be that way. Uh, so I have a lot of. I really I really can't pick a favorite.
I see.
I can say things that I liked uh, about different scores. Uh, Grim Fandango was an opportunity to write live music and to record some amazing performers uh, just a perfect time in kind of in music history. I mean, that score happened when um, there was a big swing revival in San Francisco, and you could go to clubs and hear all these players play, and then go around the corner to the taqueria and hear a mariachi band play. And that's literally how the score got put together. I mean, that's
And that's the
some of the
feeling
music.
that you put into the game as well,
I,
because I remember myself playing the game and
yeah.
experiencing that feeling when I went out and I the taco festival, if I remember correctly, in the game, yeah, or
Mhm.
some
Yeah.
festival, and the
For
mariachi
that,
band is
yeah.
playing there. It was such a I remember as a kid playing that, and it was such a
And that was a mariachi band that
yeah.
that I that that was that I found by just walking walking down the streets of the mission,
It's
and
interesting how influence flows into work of creators, right? How quick examples can happen in people's life that can be an influence.
so that was an opportunity to really work with some of those musicians, and Bill Ortiz, played with Santana for years. He's the trumpet player.
I see.
And Paul um, uh, Paul Hansen, the reed player, he played a bunch of the reeds anyway. He played some of the clarinets and some of the uh, saxophones and stuff. And bassoon, of course, he's a basically world famous bassoon player. He just played on Jean Baptiste record. He plays for Cirque du Soleil. I mean, these were just like world class musicians who I just was lucky to run into and have on the score and have been able to work with since. Um, so and Ralph Carney, I believe he's no longer with us, but he was Tom Waits's reed player for many years. Um, and just an absolutely first class group of folks, and it that also taught me, how far do you go as a composer versus just let the musician do what they do, and that was a really important lesson. Um, Psychonauts was wonderful because it's such a, I mean, everything um, Tim Schafer does is so incredibly creative, and uh, that that was my first, yeah, that was my first gig as an independent composer, and it was mostly written and recorded in my little cottage in Berkeley that I was renting at the time.
I see.
And uh, again, some incredible players on that. Hearthstone has been an amazing opportunity to work with the same ensemble of musicians uh, for a really long time, and that's been so that there's nothing like, for a composer, there's nothing like having a group of musicians that you get to work with, and you learn what each player can do and how to bring that best of that player out, and you write the piece accordingly. And so that, and also the thing that's cool about Hearthstone is being able to do kind of it's its own genre of music. I don't even know what to call it. It's
I see.
sort of a guitar concerto, right? Um, but it's acoustic guitar, five winds, a variable number of brass, and lots of percussion. And that's just a very with the guitar, the role that the guitar plays in that. I really can't think of anything else that does that. So I'm kind of proud of that, honestly. Um, uh, let's see some other things. I mean, Brutal Legend. Get to score Jack Black, having it out with Tim Curry. That's
Yeah.
doesn't get a whole lot better than that. So there were, and of course we did a song with Jack Black and Psychonauts 2 as well, which was a real privilege. Um, uh, yeah, I'm sure I'm leaving some things out. The Plants vs Zombies is the various levels. There's Plants vs Zombies 2, and then Garden Warfare. And Plants vs Zombies 2 was an opportunity to get almost to go back to the LucasArts days in terms of making things really simple sounding. Because Laura Shigihara, who's the original composer of those themes, she's a real one of a kind composer. And to sort of stay faithful to that vision was very satisfying. And the Garden Warfare, that's just so zany and very free in the sense of I could kind of pretty much do anything I wanted to, and it worked with them. And I had a great team to work with on those uh,
Nice.
on those games.
I
So yeah,
remember when I was playing Garden Warfare games, uh, throughout the loading screen, there was a very, chill vibed, music. And I always mentioned it's like it's similar music when see these typical American movies when there is an elevator and there is a music in the elevator playing, and it's so chill but still like so vibey, and you can vibe to that music the whole time. It was like such a good experience. Like
That's
it
yeah.
it made loading screens actually feel good. I can tell you that.
That's well. That was thank you. That was the idea.
Yeah,
We lounge version of the theme. I think
yeah,
is and I also I like a lot of different types of music, as I mentioned before,
yeah.
and one of my sort of guilty pleasures is real like lounge music, really cheesy,
I see.
50s, uh, you know, dry martini lounge music, and that's what that is.
Yeah. It was very cool. Like I said, it's like it made loading screens look good and feel good. Like
That's
you don't feel the time, wasted seeing the loading screen throughout the game because the music is such a good experience there. So yeah. Yeah.
that's like the entertainment that you have in lines at Disneyland, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So throughout the journey of being a music composer, how have you changed as a person of other territories of your life, and what skills have you picked up to other territories of your life? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think you know probably the main other territory of my life is I'm a husband and a father, so I think that what hopefully music has done for me is to know where to stop trying to make something happen and as opposed to letting it happen.
I see.
So, I think I've always in music I've always enjoyed. I'm very, in some ways, very particular. If we do a take, even of a jazz piece, and it doesn't feel something doesn't feel quite the rhythm that I wanted. I'll just okay, let's do it again, and I'll hum the rhythm, and we'll and it can probably be a little bit uh, occasionally a little tedious for the musicians. But I also there are plenty of times where I'll just hear something and go, she just played something better than I wrote. We're just going to keep that,
But
you know,
that's nice. That's nice that you can
and
have this
or
attitude
just
of
or just,
appreciation.
like I didn't expect that something will happen. I didn't expect that. I'm going to keep it, keep it, keep it. That's the gold right there. Um, so uh, I it's being open to, and that's important in being a family too, being open to what things that will happen, as opposed to trying to curate everything.
I see.
uh, I think that's important.
Was it something that you didn't have before that you became a musician? Do you think?
um yeah, good question. Maybe not, I don't know. I think all musicians have some, this is a pretty sweeping statement, but have some level of OCD, or a little bit on the spectrum,
I see.
um, because how could you not be if you're going to play something over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until you get it right? I mean, that takes a certain kind of mind. There's just no two ways about it.
True.
And the same thing is true of writing music. It's like you. Uh, I used to years ago. Um, Casey Kasem, I think it was, he's a famous American DJ. He did a series on John Lennon's basement tapes, and he'd play. I've always tried to find this one, but he would play something that in demo tapes that John had made of early versions of song, and then later versions, and you'd hear the song evolving, right? And there was this one that he played, um, and I wish I could find the actual broadcast of this because I have not been able to, but I do remember it going this way. He played this song where John is strumming his guitar and he's saying, "Oh, this just completely boring melody and god awful lyrics about how nobody understands him and Yoko and who gives a shit, you know." It's just like I nobody cares about this. Why are you doing this, you know? And he's saying this just intolerable thing. And then there's another version where he's changed some of the words, he's altered the melody a little bit, and it's like, well, it's actually, that was an improvement. And then there's another version. By the third version, you realize, oh my God, this is Imagine. This song is Imagine. And it's like one of the greatest songs he ever wrote. And the thing is, what does it take to make a song like that? Sometimes it just comes out of you, but other times you have to just hammer on it and hammer on it and hammer on it until it's the right thing. And that was and I was like, wow, he started with something that was that horrible. I mean, I'm sorry, it was pretty bad to start with, and and ended up with something that's an absolute masterpiece. This is, that's it's being an artist is having the vision first of all, right? True. He must have known even at the beginning that it was going somewhere, and had faith that it was going in the right place, even though he was just doing placeholder ideas of what that would be ultimately, right? But also having just tenaciousness to stick it through until it really was what it needed to be. And so, that's I think that's very important for being probably any kind of artist, but definitely being a composer.
I see.
Yeah, and actually, when I think of visual art, I remember seeing a poster of like something like at least 6 versions of something that Picasso did, and he only kept the last one. True. And you look at the others and you're like, wow, that's cool. But you look at the last one and you go, now that was okay.
Way cooler.
I see why he kept doing it over and over again. Yeah. So it's the old 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. That old cliche it's true. And it takes a certain kind of weird mind to follow through on that.
True. Were there times, by the way, throughout your journey that you questioned your own craft and you had to, like you told us, hammer down your music that you have composed and change something in a very wider space or timing?
You mean it? I mean, sometimes for me, it's just like it's writing a piece is kind of like mowing the lawn. I start at the beginning and I end at the end, and it's just it's a very meticulous mowing of the lawn in the sense that I will not go to measure 5 until measures 1 through 4 are the way I want them, right? And I would say that's probably the way I work a lot. So it's very rare when you work like that to go back and go, oh my gosh, the first 25 measures of this they've gone wrong because you've worked on it so hard, and hopefully done it in a way that you get perspective on it, so that you're very confident with when you get to measure 25 that okay, well I'm at least solid up to measure 20, so I'm not going to revisit that. But so I think it has happened, but it's pretty rare for me to just kind of throw something out that's working on for a long time. I usually feel pretty solid about how I'm working on it. As I do it more and more, I find that I am a little more comfortable sketching things for a while and not being really and not nailing them down, and then I kind of go back and fix. And I think that the way it works now is I feel like when I'm writing a piece of music, 99% of the time I'm just listening, and then somehow the piece gets written. I don't even know how it gets written. Just listen and oh, that's not exactly what I want, and it has to work for me, and working for me is something it's very it's a pretty certain feeling. So I don't I would say I don't, knock on wood, I've very rarely had writer's block. Knock on wood, I've very rarely, you know, um, so get questioned, what I'm doing. And I think part of that too is that what I'm doing is I'm writing music for picture. So I have a very strong feeling about the picture and what the music should be that goes with
I
it.
see. I
And
see.
that's not going to, I mean, I suppose if I was writing a string quartet, with no picture, I might kind of feel differently and wonder more whether what I was doing was the right thing. But the picture is kind of the vision. So I think that helps you not question um, what you've done. So yeah, I'm always pretty sure of what I'm doing. And Bob Dylan said once, I, I can't really talk about what happens when I do it, but when I'm doing it, I have a handle on it, and I think that was that.
Yeah, it's true. It's
Uh,
true.
so yeah,
I
I,
see.
I don't, I'm not big on self doubt.
But that's a good thing in my
At least
opinion,
not,
and
at least not when it comes to writing music.
that's a good thing in my opinion. When I was attending to voice sector class, our mentor told us that you have to have faith for yourself and to have that level of ego, because if you have that level of ego and self-aware that you can handle uh, something that you are talented in, then you can always like lower down your ego. But if you do not have that ego, it's way harder to grow that ego and that self-awareness of that you are at the right place, and it's very true, by the way. I agree with you on that.
it's it's much easier to punch something down than it is to punch it up.
True, true, true. Exactly.
Punching it up is always harder.
Exactly, exactly. And I also agree that if you're doing something on a constant, timing, like everyday routine, it's way easier not to question yourself. And like you said, like the block for a creator, mind block, that if they are thinking that okay, I can't do this anymore or I'm not good at it, it's a block happens if you are not willing to do it every day, in my opinion. If you're I remember it might be Lupe Fiasco. There was an interview with him, and he told that to university students that it was the same question from one of his students, because he was teaching students for music and how to
Mm-hmm.
write music, and he told the students that he never had any block in his mind, because he felt like he's doing music so many hours per day that he could not question what he's doing, because it was intentional and he loved doing it, like, and he believed that there is no block. It's just lazy people who are bringing up this word of block, who are not willing to take the first step to make their talent shine on an everyday level.
Well, Paul Simon once said, I saw on TV, him talking with a bunch of songwriting, like in a songwriting clinic of some sort, and he said, "Oh, people tell me all the time, I don't know what to write about, and I don't know what to say." And he said, that's bullshit. You it's not that you don't know what to say; it's that you're afraid to say.
exactly.
what you want,
Yeah, exactly.
and I think that is true on some. It also, I will say, helps in the business of what I'm doing. Really helps to have that deadline. You do you do really need to. It's so important to, when you're working on a team with people, to not be the weak link, to not be the guy who's holding things up,
True.
and if you do happen to be, I've really, really tried never, ever, ever to be that guy who's holding up the project. And in the very few times that I might have been near that territory, I've just tried to make it as clear to everyone as possible why it's important for me to do what I'm doing, and not and just to be patient with me. But I just don't ever want to get there in the first place. I do think of what I do as half art and half craft, and the craft part's really important, and and as such, and part of the craft is keeping the customer satisfied. The customer being the rest of the
Yeah,
team
but
that
it's
you're
also
working.
art, right? So it's also art. Like it's
It
combined
is.
together. If you mention that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the art part comes in. What do now that you've accepted all the constraints that you have, right? Whatever those constraints might be, they might be budget, they might be technical, they might be schedule constraints. Now that you've accepted, because real art does get done in the real world, and so the art comes in when once you've accepted all the constraints you have. What are you going to do with it? What unique perspective, what um, little trick might you do, or what unexpected insight might you provide that's going to make people excited, or make people enjoy their experience more, or go, whoa, what was that?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned before, that I also believe in that every creator, has their life experience put into their own craft, if we could say, or that they are working on. Is that true for your every project, that you always put your also real life experiences and your feelings into music that you composed?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a method actor when it comes to that sort of thing. So
Which were
you
more
know,
of like positive or negative
I mean,
experiences
it
that
doesn't matter whatever it is, whatever
awesome.
the experience is. So for for Broken Age, which is a Double Fine adventure game, there's a character. There's a character who is, at least appears in the form of a wolf,
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
that, as it happened, when I was doing that score, um, there there's also there are two things. There's a character that appears in the form of a wolf, and there's also a sort of enchanted forest in the in that game, and as well, among the various environments. And the wolf, as it happened during that time, we had a real live wolf in our neighborhood. We had
Oh, really?
there was a, yeah. I live in a kind of similar semi-rural part of it's north of San Francisco. It's very close to the city, but it's a little bit out in the country at the
I
same
see.
time. And one of our neighbors at the time had a real live wolf as a pet, and he would walk this dog. Wolf wasn't a dog.
Wow.
Um, with those ropes that you climbed up to the gym, the ceiling of the gym in
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
were in,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that was what he used for a leash for this guy. And because I'll tell you, a wolf is wholly different from a dog.
Yeah.
A German Shepherd, when it bites, exerts like 750 pounds of pressure with its jaws. A wolf exerts 1,500. Um, and you just, when you see one, you just know, oh, you're the creature that my ancestors have been terrified of ever,
Yeah.
ever since time
We
began.
are still
And
are, so
well, yeah, are they still in the Schwarzwald? Are they still right there? I heard some years ago about some controversy about wolves in the Schwarzwald, but um, uh, anyway, and I've been out camping in the wilderness and heard wolves very near me, and I'll tell you uh, there's no sound like that.
yeah.
But so every night, really, this wolf would howl. Beautiful. I really miss Aku was its name. It means ice cream in Inuit or something. Um, and and this wolf would call at night, and it was the most incredible sound. And that wolf howl is in the theme for the character in Broken Age that appears to be a wolf. And also the enchanted forest is right up on the hill here. So, yeah, it's right behind our house, really. So definitely, whenever there's an opportunity to look at experience that I'm having directly that might be relevant to whatever I'm scoring, yeah, I go for it big time.
Do you think like it was always like meant to be experienced in your life? Whenever you worked on a game, you experienced the exact, uh, things that were related to exact game. Like it
Well,
was a happens to be thing in your
that's
life.
a deep philosophical question, which of course gets into, you know, as a minister's kid, I'm I've pondered those questions quite a bit.
I hope that you won't do that now.
Into that gets into questions of free will and that sort of thing. So, meant to be is an interesting concept. You know, I think I think maybe a better way of thinking of it is allowed to be, but
Okay.
that comes from
So you say
that
that
comes
you're always open to opportunities in life.
yeah, it
Okay.
comes from reading C.S. Lewis.
Okay. I see. I see. Nice. Thank you. Thank you
But
for your answer for that. By the way.
it does help to when you're writing something, it does help to feel as though it's coming from somewhere else and that it is that you're discovering it. It helps me
I see. I see.
uh,
I see.
to do that. But what's really going on there, I think, is a lot deeper than that. And it's more than human based AI.
True. Yeah. It's what we do not have or might have knowledge, but as you know,
Hmm.
do not realize that we have that knowledge about it. Yeah, it's interesting because for me, I believe in that everything is happening for a reason, and if like for instance your example of life, like everything happen during those games that that you were composing music and writing music for. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting to hear these stories and to know that you know everything like happened related to those games.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So as from games topic, here comes another question. How you always chose which game would you like to work on? So what was the idea
Um,
behind choosing the games that you are working on?
Before I answer that, just a little follow up to what we were just talking
Okay.
about. I also live in an area where it's near where George Lucas lives, and it's near Skywalker Ranch, and all there are all these place names around here that made their way into Star Wars, and there are all these there are if you go over to Oakland, you'll see these structures down by the dock that the giant AT-ATs were based on, and so I think that's a great example of someone who, when he was coming up with this world, um, he took what was around him
I see.
and 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 turned it and infused his story with it.
I see.
But the question of how do I choose? You don't always choose. You get you get an opportunity. Let's
I
put it
see.
that way.
Sorry. I see. I see. I see. I see. And were there times when you like said no to such an opportunity?
Pretty rare.
Rare. Okay. And
Rare.
why? And
Yeah.
if it happened,
It's
why? Why was it?
usually based on schedule.
I see. I see.
I guess there was one. I guess there was one that was based on. No, I'm sorry, that's not my rate.
I see. I see. I see. I see.
It's like, well, you can go find a college kid or something, but no, I'm not going to score that for that.
I see.
That was, that's pretty rare.
I see. And if you like would happen to go back, and you told us that it was like because of schedule, would you, if you would have more time during those periods of your life, would you have done those scores as well?
I'm trying to think of, well, I think most of the opportunity, most of those situations, I kind of only found that out after the fact anyway. So it's hard to say. I
I see.
mean, it's, honestly, really, I've just been very lucky when it comes to, I guess I should knock on wood when it comes to um, project flow because uh, things seem to have come up at opportune times. And once in a while, things kind of, fight with each other because you just got too much on your plate. But for the most part, I've been pretty lucky that way.
I see. Okay. Okay, so spoiler time question: are you working on some soundtracks now, or you can say anything about it, or?
Neither confirm nor deny that I'm
Okay,
working on
okay,
it.
okay. Will we see in the future? Sometime in the future?
Sometime in the future, I don't think the super well. Yeah, I don't know. Like that can't answer that question.
Is it game oriented though, or?
Yeah, yeah. Everything that
So
I
we
can
will we
neither
will
confirm.
have to have another conversation then later. I will have to keep eye on
Yeah,
your work again. Okay, nice, 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 nice.
yeah. Well, people are very protective about their schedules and their announcements. So yeah, there's certainly nothing that
Do
I'm
you
able
think, by
to
the way,
announce.
it's a good thing that publishers are so protective about informations? How do you feel
Yeah,
about it
well,
as an arts making arts person?
after Kim Jong Un hacked Sony Pictures and yeah, I understand that. I I understand fans being frustrated with big publishers too, but this things do happen where secrets get let out the door and it costs people lots of money. So
True, exactly. True, true, true,
I,
true.
I I'm good with that.
True, 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 true. Okay. Can you see, by the way, yourself making music like forever for your entire life, or
I,
will
I,
be there
I
like a spot when you say that okay, I'm done and now I will rest a bit? How do you feel
given
about that?
given given the economic necessities at the moment of the family, I'm not seeing that ending anytime soon.
I see. I see.
So I mean, plus even someday when I retire, I'll probably still be doing music in some format. So I don't know. I'm
I see.
I'm it's hard to tell exactly, but it's likely that I'll be doing it for a long time.
I see. Okay, so, and going back to a more personal question, do you feel like
Mm-hmm.
your father was like a mentor to you by, that you started loving music? So was he like the, main person, let's say main hero of your video game, if we can convert to that, that is there, and because of him, you still on the right path of, being a musician and a composer?
Well, so fathers and sons are they have always have fraught relationships, right? And uh, he certainly dad. First of all, dad was musical. He sang in the he had a very good voice, and he sang in the Wesleyan Glee Club back when he was in college. Uh, and and he loved music. Like in his church services, he always tried to have good music. But I don't know that. I think he looked. I I think his encouragement was indirect. Let's put
I
I
see.
don't think that I think he was kind of in some ways puzzled by his son, who's maybe seemed very different from him, and you know, in the long run, maybe turned out to be more similar than any of us thought.
It always turns out like that. I saw a good movie about it, by the way. I can't recall the name of it, but I think that Denzel Washington was the main character in that movie, and
Love.
it was about that it's always like the son is it's ends up being very similar, even if he does not want to be like his father.
Yeah, and there's
Like
a
it's a
well,
choice, of course, but yeah.
there's a famous quote by Mark Twain that something like, when I was 18, I knew that I knew everything, and my father knew nothing. And by the time I was 21, it was amazing how much he had learned in 3 years. And of course, the time it took to be an adult in Mark Twain's day was a little compressed compared to what it is now. I think the numbers now would be 16 and 30.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but but it's still a true quote.
True. Yeah.
If I got the quote right, you know something like that. And so yeah, I think a lot of times what you appreciate is in hindsight.
True, true, true. Yeah. Okay. So if you would happen to say like a main message or messages with your music that you composed, created, or have written, what would it be, or what messages would they be that you want to like give, even if it's not intentional, but what messages would you want it to give to the players, and also to the listeners of these songs, these soundtracks?
Um, that the world is interesting and
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay.
That there's something worth worth seeing under every rock.
Okay. I see. Have you always had this attitude to life that you mentioned also, that you are pretty much into every genre of music, and you are pretty much experiencing everything by itself, and you're appreciating small things, bigger things as well, and be open-minded about everything? Have you always been like that? Have you always had this attitude at your
I
life?
think I probably some version of it.
Okay.
Yes, I mean I think when I was younger, I was a lot as young people tend to be. I was a lot more dogmatic and
I see.
and
I see.
and and
And what
narrow
what
minded
made you change then? What made you change then? What perception?
experience
Okay. Okay.
experience experience being with different types of people and experience doing different types of things, and you know seeing what works for some people and what doesn't work for some people,
I
and
see.
maybe having some tragedy in one's life,
I
as
see.
well as so I think that all those things hopefully broaden your perspective rather than narrowing it. So um, I mean, there are some things that I am more wary of now than I was when I was younger, but that's not quite the same thing, because that's something you learn from experience too. Um, you know, one of the things that I think young people tend to do is very very starkly divide the world into good guys and bad guys. And I think when you get older, what you realize is it's not that there aren't good guys and bad guys, because there definitely are good guys and bad guys. It's just a little trickier to figure out who they are as you get older.
True.
And
True.
somewhat, and so, uh, and also to know that some folks are a mixture of both, and how to sort of relate to the hopefully the good guy part as much as you can.
True. Exactly. I always say that I believe that there is good, in every one of us. It's just, mostly it's a choice if a person brings out their good part or their bad part. And I think that there is a very interesting, interview series for like serial killers and very bad people who did very
Yeah,
bad stuff. And the person who makes these interviews always like trying to see behind the curtain to understand why they did the exact thing that they did. And sometimes it turns out that they are not bad people in any way. Like it's just, life happened and they couldn't, be at that time, at that moment, and make the right decision. And it's very interesting that I feel like, don't get me wrong, like it has to be a justice for
yeah,
like getting these people into prison or something like that. But it's like I feel like we living in a world where people are like cannot understand others, and they are not even willing to do that. Like people are so close-minded about understanding not just others problems, but if they tend to do something that others might not, they tend to react in a very quick way, even if it was a quick thing to do for them, like the bad thing. And I remember I read one book of Agatha Christie, and the book was about she in her real life almost murdered her husband for her husband cheating on her. And that's the main message of that book, was like she intended to have this message that in every one of us there is a killer, even if we
yeah.
do not know that. It's just there has to be the right time for that moment. I know it sounds crazy, right time, but that's what she wanted to have with her messages, that if there is a right time for us to change for the bad side, we will change because we are humans. And but it's a choice for not letting ourselves change. And it was very interesting to see, and it was very interesting to realize that it was like a hidden message in her book, that she almost have got into a case when she have been
Yeah.
a killer of her husband, just because she couldn't stand the fact in an emotional level that he's cheating on her. And it's
Yeah.
such an interesting story. And she did not do it because like she realized, okay, I'm not doing that. It's not like it's not changing anything at the end of the day. And it's very interesting to see that.
Well, it's humility is important,
True, true, true,
and
true, 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 true. Okay. So you also, I hope that you don't mind me asking this. You also mentioned like realizing loss. So throughout your life, were there times when you like very deeply involved emotionally into somebody's loss, that it affected and influenced your music in such a brilliant way as well? Like, do you feel like there were times when your music became this, slowly more sad vibed music, and it was intentional, of course?
yes, I lost a very close friend in college
I
to
see.
rock climbing,
I see.
and that tragedy, that really sort of shook me up and made me realize that life was short. It inspired some specific songs, of course, but I think more generally, it put the fear of God into me in some sense, and made me want to use my time as as efficiently as I could to do you know, no more messing around. Time to actually create something.
I see. I see. And that's very nice of you saying this, and it can be combined with what you said before. That's like uh, the message of your music is that we should, uh, experience and appreciate moments of life. And it's such a rich word that if we look around, we realize, and it's also like combined with what you said before. That time is short, and if we realize it, then we might be able to appreciate the little small things and be open-minded about life. Yeah, I appreciate that you have said that. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Sure.
Do you feel that throughout your life you really found yourself, by the way?
Um, yeah, I would say so.
Okay. Okay.
you know, I don't. That's not a. Uh, it's not something. I think you at different stages in your life that the idea of finding yourself has different levels of importance.
I see.
Uh, and I would put that level of importance right now as pretty low.
I see. I see.
I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with who I am, and I have ideas of what I'd like to do, and also I have other people to help along.
I see.
I think part of it is you know that that sort of feeling of angst of what am I gonna what am I gonna do? That is not something that is something I'm familiar with and had a lot of at one time, but uh, it's actually something. It's one of those things where, like, well, geez, I'm getting a little older now, and when you get older, stuff happens. You can't do the same things you could do when you were younger, and it's a bummer. And everybody talks about what a bummer it is. What's not a bummer is that if I look back on when I could do some of those things that I can't do now, or at least not quite as well, um, I go, but gosh, I was so insecure. Man, it's miserable. I'm not insecure or miserable. Quite. I'm, I mean, I have things to worry about, but most of them are bigger than me.
People change, right? Due to the fact that life happens around them. But that's a beauty of life, I think. So that's a good
Yep.
thing in my opinion. So, and have you ever like also write music or wrote music to someone, like like a love letter or
Oh,
appreciation
of
letter?
course, yeah. Um, you know, most recently that would be to my wife and my daughter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's of course music is personal that way. Not there, uh, and it finds its way. Those things find their way into if you're scoring like a game or something, your personal connections will.
True, 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 true. Throughout the message, like you said, I think that people can relate to those messages, even if not for the first time. But I think that they will understand. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a question in my mind, but I
Mhm.
forgot. Sorry for that. I'm trying to rethink. So, um, oh yeah, I know now. So when composing music and or writing music, which comes first for you? If it's a lyrical one, like a vocal one, is it the lyrical side or the melody
Oh, if
melodic
you're
side?
doing if you're writing an actual song, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did songs for Facebook that I released on an album earlier
Okay,
back in March, and so for those, it's there's so many ways to do that, right? And hang on just one second. Uh, there are so many ways to do that, and the old school way, but the Tin Pan Alley way is you start with the lyrics, and you just and so Cole Porter songs. I'm pretty sure I've written. I could be wrong about this, but are written uh, are written. and that goes back to the classical tradition where you set a leader, a lead, das Lied. A lead is set is music, is poetry that's set to music, right? And there's always a libretto in an opera before there's actually the opera. There's a very strong Western tradition of the words come first. Um, what people who really broke that, and I'm sure there were others before them, were the Beatles, where um, they would write um, working words to just have something to sing, but they'd really work on the melody. And so a song like Yesterday um, by, I'm pretty sure this is true, Paul McCartney's original working words to that song were scrambled eggs, right? Scrambled eggs, da-da-da-da, scrambled eggs. And it just helped him, gave him a vehicle to make the melody. And then, and as the melody was being made, um, start to think about the words, what the words really should be. Um, and I think when I have done songs, it's been, at least recently, it's been kind of a combination of both methods in the sense that I think about, I usually think about an essential line, and it kind of just pops into my head, music and lyrics, and then from there, um, yeah, and like Bob Dylan said, I can't really talk about it much, but when I'm doing it, I have it.
But that's a very nice feeling when these things pop in your head, right? So
Yeah, yeah, it is. If you know, you get a sort of
were there
a,
times, by the way, where when you could not write down the actual lyrics on the road, you were on the road and there were some lyrics popping in your head and you could not write down into your phone or into notepad or
oh,
something?
yeah, we didn't have always have phones to sing
Yeah,
into.
true, true, true.
I used to carry around a handheld cassette recorder
I
back in the
see.
day, and that was pretty much so that did the same thing. Yeah, a really, and I'm very much a melody guy, so the melody comes almost before anything,
I see. I see.
but often often the main part of the melody comes to me with some kind of a lyric, some version of which ultimately gets kept.
I see. Okay. Okay, so going back to the very first thing that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned that you wanted to make a band. Are you like willing to go back and for that wish of yours and to make a band as well, or
Um,
or you
well,
lost that?
we did play in bands back in those days. It's just that particular one didn't.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what I wanted to ask. That did you want it to
Yeah,
go back like to that passion
right
of
now
yours or goal of yours?
maybe, I don't know. It kind of depends. Uh, you know, doing a band takes a certain level of energy that 20-year-olds have a lot of. Um, and uh, but I live in a very musical valley. There are a lot of some of them even famous musicians around here, like um, oh shoot, now I can't think of his name, but anyway, it's there. There are a lot of sort of old San Francisco, old school San Francisco musicians who live in the valley. So there's a lot of just music going on in the bars, and I'm sure I I just haven't really had time for it because of my gigs, of my work,
I see.
and I do want to spend time with my family. So most of the, I'd say, uh, uh, most of the live music I play is actually with my family, and I wish we did more of that actually
They are the
before.
real fans, right? Of your band, of your solo band.
And well, it's not just my band. My son's a pretty darn good singer,
Nice, nice, nice.
and so I I'm more interested in doing that right now than I am in playing in a pub.
I see.
But I do play, I do play live, with bands from time to time.
I see. I see.
Just that's not the focus right now.
I see. Okay. Are you down to answer some questions from my community as well?
Sure, I do have. I kind of got to cut it off at 11 because I have to
Okay.
prepare for another thing at 11:30. So
Okay.
so I have to take, but I'm happy to answer some
Okay.
questions.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, let us know if there is any question. Hölgyek, urak, hogyha bármi kérdés van, akkor nyugodtan kérdezzetek. Let us know, let us know. Let us know. Let me watch back the chat if there was any question. Let us know, let us know. Oh, so Mini is asking in Hungarian, I will translate it for you. What was your very first success in music throughout your music journey as a composer? And so that yourself, so that around that period, you as a music composer, did you think that it will be this much of a success during your life?
As a composer, well, I guess that's got to be having worked on the Monkey Island 2 game with Michael and Clint,
Okay.
because that score did get a fair amount of notoriety back in the day, and that felt really good. So yeah, as a performer, I think my first big success was singing with my buddy for my high school and getting a standing ovation back in like 1977 or something.
And did you think that around that time when you had this first success of your life that you will be successful and you will find yourself in a totally
No,
right
kidding.
way?
I was a teenager then, so no.
I see.
No, the I think teenagers are pretty insecure, and the ones who seem to be are often the least secure of all.
They're just playing or having a mask on their
That,
face that nobody
yeah,
sees.
and being a teenager is pretty rough. I think it's a tough time.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the question as well. Okay, any more questions? Closing questions? Let us know. Let us know. Bármilyen más kérdés? And thank you for the question, Mini, by the way. Any more questions? Let us know. Bármilyen más kérdés? Let us know. I will wait for 1 or 2 minutes, and if not, then... Oh, there is one. Okay. She's writing it now. Oh, Mini is asking that were you thinking of like how to say it in English? Oh, okay. So Mini is asking that were you thinking like on a show or a show for the people where you could like song your favorite or sing your favorite songs?
You mean just perform on some kind of
Like
like
those songs that you were working on.
Well, I mean, there's a YouTube.
Yeah,
there's
it
a
is, but
YouTube.
like yeah, but she's asking like a show, like an exact show, for your
Oh,
close
actually,
friends or family members, yeah.
yeah, I have thought about doing a little more, sort of video oriented stuff where I'm playing music. That is something that I am interested in doing.
Okay.
Turns out to be quite a lot of work.
Yeah, to organize it
Because
and
you have to think, you have to think about things like camera angles and
true.
it's I mean, people who are influencers, it's a harder job than it looks like it is.
It is, yeah. And people do not think if they think of just making these videos or shows, they think that it's easy. You just sit down and
But I would like to share some things that I've done in that format. Like, I think people who like music, um, I've seen there are a lot of videos of people like playing my music, right? They'll playing something from Grim Fandango or playing something from Hearthstone, and and I think people do like to see actually the music being made, or they're interested in seeing the person who wrote the song actually perform it in some way.
Exactly.
So yeah, I would like to do something like that when there's time. I probably will.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. Okay. Are you or do you have anything that we have not discussed that
I
it
think
is
so.
on your
Yeah, it's
mind?
been quite a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that you did not mind my very personal questions, and I hope that you
Not at
enjoyed your
all.
time with me.
I'm
And
a more or less open book, so yeah,
thank you.
those were they were great questions actually. So I
Thank you.
really do appreciate.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, I will need some of your time, like for some minutes, but for those who are watching us, thank you for joining us, and thank you for you as well that you joined us. Like I said, I'm very honored and I'm very thankful for your time and for
Well, thank
your
you for the
honesty as well from all of your experiences throughout your life. And for those who will be watching back the VOD, enjoy your time and thank you that you have been there, everyone, and watched us live, or you will watch us uh, the edited version of this interview or the VOD on Twitch. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening or day, depending where you live. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.